Did I ever tell you the story about the Toxic Avenger? It's probably not appropriate for this, but I'm going to do it anyway. When I was in college, I had a friend, and she liked to watch horror movies. It was something we had in common. But she was a real Southern belle. I went to school in the South, and so I always picked just things that were, I don't know, tasteful. No, I just like things that were like not over the top, gory or whatever. But one time she said to me, and this is after like months of us getting together like once a week to watch a horror film. She said, "I want to show you one that's really special to me." And I said, "Okay, you can pick the movie. I can bring it over." So she brings over the Toxic Avenger. Now, again, keep in mind, she is very, goes to church on Sundays. I don't know what she's doing hanging out with a Jew watching horror films. So I put in the movie, and we're watching it. It's like softcore porn. It's like ridiculous. And so, when the scene kind of happened that got really, let's just say, intense, I looked over at her and she had this look of horror on her face. And I'm like, "Is this the right Toxic Avenger?" She's like, "It is." And I'm like, "You watched this a lot as a kid?" And she's like, "The version that was on TNT." So she had no idea that it was this really dirty movie. What was this on again? Okay, color mixing. This is a big one. I was originally going to call this one the color wheel, but the truth is the color wheel only has so much usefulness for an artist. The color wheel is based on light, not paint. So because it's not pure, it's not always very accurate. And we'll get into a little bit of that. Besides the fact that pigments aren't pure like light, pigments tend to bias cool and warm tones. Now, this is the big thing with color mixing, okay? Because you can buy yourself a green, a purple, you can get yourself a magenta, you can get yourself a violet, you can get yourself a phthalo green, a viridian green, a hooker's green. Name a green, Katie.
Sap green.
Sap green, good work. Okay, so you can pick any of these colors. You don't have to mix, but we're gonna look, if you look here at what I have laid out, primaries, black and white, okay? Now, if you don't understand the warm and cool tones, you're going to have a really hard time mixing colors. So let me just give you an example. I'm going to mix Ultramarine Blue, which is a cool bias blue. And if you watched our video on why can't I mix purple, I mean, this is basically taking that to the next level where we talk about kind of all colors. And I'm going to mix that with a warm bias yellow, which is a lemon yellow. And then I'm going to put over here just some more of this. And then I'm going to take this phthalo blue, which is a warm bias blue. Okay. Now, I want to mix green. I put out yellow and blue. Yellow and blue make green. Well, what's that green going to look like? Let's take a look. So again, ultramarine blue, lemon yellow. So I'm going to go into my yellow, and I'm going to add a little bit of blue. A little bit more blue. And this is, I don't know, is it like an army green? Or it's not even army green. It's not a very natural looking shade. And if I was to be wanting to paint, let's say, something landscape, I mean, yeah, maybe some of this is in nature, but it's kind of muddy and it's kind of dull. And yes, if I looked at it, I would say that's green, but that's not a nice bright green. That's not a green that I would expect yellow and blue to make. So let's see what happens. This is the magic. When I mix the phthalo blue, and I'm going to use a lot less because it's a really high tinting strength paint, with my yellow. Okay? Just get it like that much. Get in there, Will. Okay. And you're going to see really quickly that little bit, and this is just the nature of the phthalo pigments. They're highly high tinting and high staining. That with a little bit you can get a really nice bright green, and let's add a lot. This is a lot. And then a really, really nice deep blue-green, because that phthalo color is strong. But you see the vibrancy of the color and kind of the muddiness of that. So understanding that warm and cool bias is going to make a difference in your color mixing. This is going to bother me, so I need to take care of this. We'll be right back. if you haven't watched the video we did on purple, you want to keep in mind that you want to use colors, so similarly to this, that again bias, well, I guess a cool bias for purple. But I've kind of laid these out. So if I wanted to mix a nice purple, I would go for the cool alizarin brilliant or alizarin crimson. And then I would go to this ultra blue. And there, you know, there's no hard and fast rules. I mean, I'm using a cad yellow medium. You can find another cool bias yellow out there. So this is just what I'm using on set. And this will mix a nice purple. And if I add some white to it, you'll get to see that. Okay. Oh, I've got it like, you know, it's all like, it's not good. I'm not used to this palette right now because I lost it, and I've been using this other big one. Should I get out the big one? Should I take out the big one? Okay. This is the one I've been using. This is the big one. Anyway, purple. Okay, not muddy. And if you're like, well, that doesn't necessarily look very magenta-y, well, add more red. If it doesn't look very violet-y, add more blue. Or you can also change out these colors, similarly to what I said before. Now, when mixing color, one thing that is always helpful to keep in mind, and you know, some of you guys out there are really advanced painters, and this is going to be like a duh moment for you. But you know, for those of you out there that are just kind of starting out, I mean, sometimes you don't think of this stuff. So let's say, let's go with this brilliant alizarin. Let's say that you had a red object, okay? If I didn't prep like a canvas or anything, so we're just gonna use that. Okay, let's just call this some kind of weird, I don't know, punching bag or something. I'm gonna turn it into a oh, okay. Let's redo that. When you're color mixing, you want to make things look, well, generally speaking, real and authentic and deep. You don't want a flat looking painting. So some people might default to mixing blacks in with their different colors to darken them, and that's what they'll do. But there's actually a better way if you're trying to use local color that is of the object, and that's using complementary colors. So what are complementary colors? Red and green, purple and yellow, blue and orange. These colors, when mixed, do make a little bit of mud, but that's what we're looking for. We're looking for a natural looking shadow. So here, let's not use that because the last time we did that, something very bad happened. We'll use Ultramarine Blue. Now again, I'm not using secondary or tertiary colors here. I'm basically using primary colors for all intents and purposes. Not intensive purposes. That's not how you say it. And by the way, okay, I'm going to get, I could not care less. I could care less. Then you don't care. Like, you know, if you could care less, you cannot care less. This is just something that bothers me, okay? Okay, so I'm going to blue myself now. All right, so we're going to take that blue. Now, because I'm not using those secondary colors, I have to mix that orange that's going to go in there. So to mix the orange, I'm going to switch over to this red light, which is a warm bias red, and lemon yellow, which is a warm bias yellow. Am I doing this right so far, Jamie? You're like, I don't know what you're doing. Okay. All right. So this should make orange, which, yeah, there you go, orange. So when you're creating shadows, when you're trying to create, turn a circle into a sphere, you're trying to turn something into looking like it's a more three-dimensional object. By using complementary colors, you can create much more authentic looking shades and shadows because it does pull the bias of those local colors. So let's just see what happens. Let's see what the color is that comes out. So let's say I have this blue object and I'm going to mix in some of that orange. And what I get is not like a black. I get like a brown, but you see how it has the undertone of that ultramarine blue. And I can add more blue to this. I can add more orange to this depending on how I want it to lighten up. But then just to kind of compare, what happens if you were to just mix black with it? So again, our ultra blue. Twist it, Mikey, twist it. Don't call me Mikey. Okay, you can call me Mikey. That was to Christina, by the way, not you. Actually, that might be a little weird. Okay. All right, so we've got the black, we've got the blue. Let's see what mixes with the two. So, a very dark blue. Okay, now could this work? Does it still have that local color of the fact that there's ultramarine blue in both? Yes. You definitely don't want to just use black straight out of the tube to create a shadow because that will have none of that color in it. But when using a complementary color, it definitely gives you more control over your paints and will give you a more authentic looking final product. Essentially what's happening is these two colors are neutralizing each other, not neutering each other, neutralizing each other, forming this kind of in-between, which is why it's a little brown, a little, I don't even call that muddy. It's a dark color that is going to give you the shadow effect that you might be looking for. You will find that these mixes are way more lively than just mixing whites and blacks. Using complementary colors gives again, that real impression of what you're actually seeing being three-dimensional. Now, what happens when you're using color and you're not mixing it? Well, there are different painting techniques. And let me just show you this. So when a color is always purest by itself. So single pigments are going to be the brightest, and so that's why a lot of people are like, well, I only use single pigment paints. And when I mix them, there's more than one pigment, but I don't like using pre-mixed paints because some people just prefer that. But whenever you mix colors, you de-intensify it a little bit. But I don't know why I just put yellow out. I can just do it with this. Okay. Well, no, I think I know what I did. So this isn't complementary colors per se, but this is just one of the issues that I see a lot of artists, especially starting out, is that they overmix their paints, okay? Now, I don't know if this is, I'm going to pull this off. I'm going to try to pull this off. Now, let me not even mix this at all and just kind of hold it up. If you were to do a large-scale painting and just put two colors next to each other, especially complementary colors, those will always juxtapose. Am I saying that? Yeah. Those will always juxtapose the most intensely, and you can kind of see that with the blue and the orange there. They intensify each other. But when it comes to color mixing, if you overmix it, you can almost even leave, I think it's called broken colors out, and just leave them next to each other, and at a distance, they will give you the illusion of the color that they would mix. But similarly, let me just take kind of half of this and not mix it that well. All right, just lightly. Then I'm going to take this other half and I'm going to mix the out of it. Let's take a look. Mixed lightly, mixed heavily. You see how, and unfortunately I have a little mark in there, but do you see how there's a lot more, I'll call it personality, character? There's more to this loosely mixed color. Now, it's not going to fit everybody's art style. It's going to just depend on what you like, and that, I mean, if you know anything about the videos I do, it's all about what do you like and what do you do. I'm just kind of playing with paint. But it takes the uniformity out of it. It gives it some randomness, and like I've said before, it's not about, for me, that photorealism, like that's so amazing, but what I like to see are artists' interpretations of things. So, you know, that's why people like Picasso, Escher, I mean, these are people that took our reality and distorted them in ways that we didn't see for ourselves the way they saw it. But these are just some of those things for color mixing that might help you out. Now, one of the best tips I can give you is consistency, okay? Learn your palette of colors before adding an additional color. If you are new to painting, I would suggest starting with this kind of palette. You know, don't add a lot of those weird colors that you know, because you won't learn how to mix these properly. Now down the road, you might find that you really want a earth tone, you know, like a raw umber or something, or a yellow ochre, and that's fine. You know, you can add that later, but you want to set the palettes up the same. So one way you set up a palette, for example, is spectrum, Roy G. Biv, right? So you get your red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, violet, all right? There are, and when you set up that palette, that's the way you want to keep it set up. You want to keep it set up consistently. Another way that you can set up your palette is light to dark, or cool and warm tones, or warm and cool tones, sorry. Yeah, cool and warm tones. And there is no right or wrong with these layouts. What I'm saying to you is, whatever you choose, stick with it, be comfortable with it. Now, here are some other little tips along with that. A lot of times when I see artists putting out paint, I see them take the tube and they just, they make this little, you know, poop emoji. I could have used a better word, but that's what came to mind. If you're going to be mixing your own colors, putting out smaller dabs will lessen the, I guess I'll call it, cross-contamination of one color into another. If you know that, you know, this is the Ultramarine Blue that you're going to be using for mixing your greens, you can put that yellow right there. If you know that this is going to be the Ultramarine Blue that you're using pure, you can leave it alone. If you know that you're going to be making purple, you can add red. But the whole idea is, if you had one pile you were pulling from, you know, a palette knife is one thing. I can just wipe this off, but a brush is a big production to clean that brush every time if you mix your colors. So for example, here, I'm going to go into that red, and I'm not going to worry too much about that, because this is the blue I put out to make purple, okay? Similarly, over here, this is the blue and yellow I put out to make green. Whatever, what was this point I was going to make? I had this like point, and it was just right there, and I didn't have it written down, but now it's gone, and I don't think it's coming back. And that's just the story of my life. So what I'm trying to say is, make your own color charts, your own color wheels, and put these things, like I say with watercolor, on, especially with watercolor, on the paper or canvas or whatever that you're going to be using, because the more transparent the color, the more that surface underneath is going to alter the color, okay? That goes for colored pencils as well. Just about anything, but especially the transparent watercolors. So figure out your colors, figure out how you want to lay it out, and be consistent as a beginner. That is the only way you're going to learn. That's the only way you're going to learn how colors behave, is by consistently using the same ones and then slowly adding in additional ones. So if all of a sudden you're going to be painting a bunch of, I don't know, purple people eaters, you know, then you add the purple, okay? Then it helps you. It's just a good thing because it's pre-mixed. Or if you're a plein air painter it really helps to have shades that are already in the tube that you can lay out that are going to more reflect accurately the colors in nature. And if you're painting a la prima or you're trying to paint quickly, not having to stop what you're doing and mix the colors up. And of course, I'm using acrylic here, so there's really a short window. But being able to more quickly go to those colors that you need is the reason why you can find color lines with over 200, paint lines with over 200 in them. They are mostly just this color and 5% white, this color and 10% white, this color with a little bit of this color and 15% white. There's only so many pigments out there. I think there's like 70 something single pigments. The rest are just mixes, okay? And don't worry about if you're not using a single pigment paint. Yes, paint is always the purest directly out of the tube, but when you're using a paint that has been pre-mixed, it doesn't always mean it's going to be muddy or undesirable. It can very much be helpful. When you use something like a dioxazine purple, however, I do want to say that that is a single pigment paint. It is a purple pigment. There are mixes of purple. Okay, what was the video I did? Blacks, right? So there are, when we did the video on blacks, we talked about Mars black, Ivory black, carbon black. Those are black pigments, PBK, right? PBK. But what you can find is there are chromatic blacks, where they are blacks that are basically following the rules that we did here of mixes of opposite colors to create blacks, and that's available. Okay, what are your color mixing techniques? I'd like to know. Inquiring minds want to know what color mixing techniques are out there. What are your little tips and tricks? This is just some very elementary stuff that I wanted to go over, but you know, I know that a lot of you guys out there, especially you guys more experienced, and you're still watching because you love me so much, and I appreciate it. I love you too. I love you so much. Please share your knowledge. Share what you use and what you do, and what your color mixing tricks are. Do you keep your palette consistent every time? Do you change out your palette? Maybe you do if you switch from portrait to landscape painting because you need different colors. Maybe you've learned to mix with just one set. I mean, the bottom line is consistency and creating, if you want a color wheel, because again, this is supposed to be like the color wheel, but I'm like, the color wheel doesn't make sense for artists. It doesn't. It doesn't. You should make your own using the colors that you're using to see more accurately how they will mix together ahead of time. So the order is choosing the colors that you want, and then you're going to take them and choose the palette layout that you want, and then you're going to choose me on Instagram. Did I get you? No? Mike, not Jerry. Yeah. Where please tag me in your art at Mike, not Jerry, so I can see everybody's art. I love it. I love it. I get tagged all the time, and I always give that little heart, sometimes more. Not always. It depends how busy I am. Very busy man. With a baby and stuff like that. Private time. That's when I get there. I don't know what I'm doing. If that's not obvious, I don't know what you guys are paying attention to. But yeah, follow me on Instagram, tag me in your art, and follow along with whatever the heck I'm doing that day or week or whatever, however often I post. Does anybody have any questions? I can't hear yours, so I'm just going to look at you guys.
Is there a way to tell, other than just looking at it, whether a color is cool or warm, especially when different brands of paint use their own names?
You're going to see that this is a Phthalo Blue by Golden green shade. Okay? There is a pigment number for Phthalo Blue, I should know. Yeah, PB 15, okay? PB 15 is Phthalo Blue, that's the pigment. However, there are multiples within that. So this is actually PB 15 3 with a little dot dot like a clock. Dot dot, not a lot. Don't. Oh, geez. Oh, I'm sorry, y'all. I'm sorry. We're filming this kids thing, and I'm not involved. 15.3. So sometimes the tube will let you know this is a green shade, so this is going to bias warm colors more. Okay. Other things like a magenta versus a violet, you know, depending on how much red is in it, it will lean more towards magenta, and how much more blue is in it, more towards purple. But warm and cool, again, just always kind of consider that, you know, does this look if I had just seen, if you just see this in the store, you'd be like, well, that's yellow, that's warm. But there is a bias towards it being cool. It biases that kind of like green blue. But I don't know if that answers anybody's question. A lot of it is practice and getting used to it. I mean, I could probably tell you that a great way to tell is try mixing two colors, and if they make mud, most likely they're not, they're opposing, they're fighting each other, the warm and cool tones. As you saw earlier in the video when I mixed the ultramarine blue with the yellow medium versus the lemon yellow, you get different results. Or excuse me, I used lemon yellow for both the ultramarine blue and the phthalo blue. And of course, because it says green shade, of course it's going to bias green. And be careful with phthalos; they're very staining, and I don't know if I'm going to get this off. And it's been bothering me for the past 45 minutes. If you find me nonsensical and annoying, you're not alone. And we have a Facebook Live show hosted by professional artist Amy Gardner-Dean, professional art teacher. She's really, she's legit. Probably too legit to quit. You just did it. Oh, we're so old. So watch Jerry's Live with Amy Gardner-Dean on Tuesday nights at 5:30 on either Facebook or our YouTube channel. We simulcast live, and you can ask questions, interact with Amy, and she knows way more than me, and she teaches me a lot of stuff as I go along. You'd think that I would know more for the amount of time I've been in this business. I can sell paint, but I'm not always great at using it. Especially when it's not something I'm more comfortable with, like watercolor, which is what I kind of default to. And you can follow, I guess, should I get Amy a plug? You get... This is supposed to be fun. This is not supposed to be something heavy. I am not very serious about anything. So I just like to have a good time. That's just, I like to make people laugh. So if you are a serious artist out there and you have more practical tips or more advanced tips, please feel free to share them down below. That's important. This is the point of the show where I start rambling because I'm always afraid that I've forgotten to say something. So feel free to turn off the video now because I'm going to continue for the next 17 minutes. Did I tell you the story about the Toxic Avenger?
No, tell us again.
No, I really forgot. It's surprising, that was probably, I don't want to date myself here, but over 10 years ago. And I still remember, I'm like, this is pretty dirty, and I'm no prude. And I'm I'm looking at her, and she's just like, oh. We didn't finish the movie.
iTunes and Prime.
iTunes and Prime. Oh, so if you have Prime, you get it for free. All right, we'll watch it on my phone after we're done filming.
Lunch date.
Lunch date, yeah. We'll put it up on the projector.
Yes.
Yeah, it'll be fun. Okay.